The invasion briefing ended with laughter. Not nervous laughter. Not uncertain laughter. The confident kind, sharp, predatory, full of teeth. Commander Zirak stood at attention near the edge of the war chamber, his claws folded behind his back, his expression carefully neutral. Around him, the high admirals of the Valthorian Purity Armada watched the rotating hologram of the target world with open amusement. A small, unremarkable planet. Blue. Green. Alive. Designation? Admiral Threx asked lazily, reclining in his command cradle. The intelligence drone hovered forward, its crystalline core flickering. Target system, Sol. Primary world, third planet from local star. Indigenous species dominant. Self-designation, humans. That name rippled through the chamber. Several officers snorted. Ah, one admiral chuckled. Those creatures. Emotionally unstable. Violent toward their own kind. Short lifespans. Barely unified. Primitive brawlers with delusions of importance. Another added. The Council overrates them. Zirak's spines twitched. He had reviewed the long-form intelligence files. Or rather, what remained of them. Technological status? Threx continued. Early spacefaring. The drone replied. Limited off-world infrastructure. Chemical propulsion dominant. Nuclear weaponry present but inefficient by galactic standards. No energy shields. No known FTL-capable warships. More laughter. Zirak cleared his throat. The sound cut through the room sharper than expected. Admiral, he said carefully. Permission to raise a concern. Threx's eyes narrowed slightly. Granted. Make it brief. The historical contact logs, Zirak said. They are incomplete. Several empires marked prior encounters with humans as classified. Casualty data is missing. The drone hesitated. Again. That is correct, it said. Multiple records contain redactions at levels exceeding standard wartime secrecy. The laughter faltered. Threx waved a claw dismissively. Old myths. Embarrassing defeats by lesser powers who wished to hide their incompetence. We are Valthorian. He rose, towering over the chamber. We bring order to chaos. We burn infection from the galaxy. A divided species like this will fold the moment we enter orbit. Zirak felt a cold pressure in his chest. Admiral, he said, voice lower, why does the threat assessment include the phrase "do not provoke unnecessarily"? Silence. Threx stared at the hologram, then smiled thinly. Because intelligence analysts are cowards. He snapped his claws. Prepare the Armada. We jump at dawn cycle. No further discussion. The jump tore open space like a wound. 300 Valthorian warships erupted into real space across the outer edges of the Sol system. Battleships bristling with energy lances, carriers packed with marines bred for planetary terror, banners of purification blazing across their hulls. They formed perfect attack geometry. They broadcast. This system is now under Valthorian authority. The declaration boomed across every known frequency. Submit, and your species may be preserved. Zirak watched the blue planet from the command deck viewport. It hung there, serene and indifferent. No reply came. Typical, Threx scoffed. Advance. The Armada moved inward. That was when the first ship vanished. Not exploded. Not destroyed. Just gone. Sensors screamed as the forward cruiser's searing light disappeared between one heartbeat and the next, its mass reading dropping to zero without any detectable energy release. Sensor error. An officer barked. Then another ship vanished. Then 3 more. Commander! A technician shouted. Multiple contacts lost. No weapons discharge detected. Zirak's blood ran cold. Range? Extreme long range. Beyond conventional engagement distance. Threx leaned forward. Impossible. Nothing can strike us from. A massive object screamed across the tactical display. Not glowing. Not powered. Just moving. It impacted a destroyer at relativistic speed. The ship didn't have time to explode. It simply became vapor and debris, punched through by sheer momentum. Kinetic impact! Someone screamed. Mass weapon! No guidance, no emissions! Zirak understood first. They're throwing rocks, he whispered. What? Threx snarled. Not rocks, Zirak said. Accelerated bodies. Cold. Silent. Old. Another impact. Another ship gone. Then another. Shields useless. Targets too fast. They're launching from hidden orbits, everywhere. The humans had turned their solar system into a minefield over decades. Abandoned asteroids. Forgotten mining platforms. Dead satellites repurposed as bullets. No warning. No mercy. The Armada broke formation as captains tried to evade physics itself. Open fire! Threx roared. Energy lances streaked toward Earth. And bent. Space warped ahead of the beams, gravity wells blooming into existence. Artificial, precise, controlled. The beams curved, slid, twisted, and tore straight through Valthorian ships instead. Zirak stared in horror. They're shaping gravity, he breathed. Localized manipulation. Not shields, terrain. A new signal cut through the chaos. Clear. Calm. Human. This is Admiral Marcus Hale of the United Terran Defense Coalition, the voice said. You are trespassing in Sol System. The feed showed nothing but a darkened bridge, human silhouettes barely visible. You have already lost 26% of your fleet. Threx slammed his claw into the console. Who authorized this transmission? Hale continued unbothered. We recommend you leave. Now. The war chamber erupted in shouting. Arrogant primate! Fire everything! Crush them! Threx snarled, eyes blazing. All weapons! Full saturation! Zirak felt something snap inside him. Admiral, no! Too late. The Armada unleashed hell. And hell answered back. From the darkness beyond Earth's orbit came a second wave, not of weapons, but of absence. Human constructs that did not emit energy, did not appear on standard scans, did not obey expected trajectories. They weren't attacking ships. They were attacking command logic. Entire squadrons went blind as quantum link systems collapsed under targeted interference. Navigation failed. Friend or foe identifiers lied. Chaos spread faster than fire. Zirak accessed the deeper intelligence layer, bypassing seals that should have required council authority. A single line of recovered data finally decrypted. Humans do not seek total war. Unless you force them into it. Zirak looked back at the blue planet. Still silent. Still waiting. And for the first time in his long military career, Commander Zirak understood the terrible truth. They had not invaded a primitive world. They had stepped into a battlefield humanity had been preparing since before it knew anyone else was watching. The first human boarding action began without a warning. No heroic broadcast. No threat. No declaration of intent. Just a sound, a low, thrumming vibration that ran through the hull of the Dominion of Flame like a distant drumbeat. Commander Zirak felt it through his claws against the deck plating. Old instincts screamed. This wasn't weapon fire. This was approach. Report, Admiral Threx snapped. Before anyone could answer, the hull cameras flared white. Not breached, folded inward, as if an invisible hand had crushed reinforced war steel like thin foil. Emergency bulkheads slammed down too late. Atmosphere vented. Crews screamed as they were torn into space. And then the humans came through the opening. They wore mismatched armor, scarred and repainted dozens of times over. Old unit markings scratched out, replaced by crude symbols, skulls, dice, handwritten names. No energy shields. No ceremonial plating. They carried projectile weapons and blades. And they were singing. Low. Rough. Almost cheerful. Zirak stared at the feed, frozen. Why? He whispered. Are they singing? Valthorian Marines charged, disciplined and numerous. The humans met them halfway. The firefight was brief. Not because it was clean, but because it was efficient. Humans moved in pairs and trios, covering angles instinctively, using fallen bodies as cover, advancing through smoke like they had been born inside it. One human took a plasma bolt to the chest and slammed into a wall. She slid down, coughed, then laughed. "Still breathing," she muttered, dragging herself upright and firing one-handed. A Valthorian officer tried to rally his unit. "Hold the line! They bleed!" A human man lunged from behind a ruptured conduit, slammed into the officer, and drove a short blade into the gap beneath his jaw with brutal precision. "Yeah," the man said calmly. "So do we." The corridor became a slaughterhouse. Zirak watched in mounting horror as the humans advanced into disadvantage, deliberately stepping into overlapping fire zones, because they knew exactly how long Valthorian weapons needed to recharge. They counted heartbeats. They used them. "Commander," a sensor tech shouted, voice shaking. "Multiple human vessels performing micro-jumps inside our formation." "That's suicide," someone cried. It was. Human ships tore into real space less than 1,000 meters from enemy hulls. Crews were crushed by inertial forces, internal structures sheared apart, but the ships held just long enough to vomit boarding pods straight into Valthorian vessels. The humans traded lives for position, and they did it without hesitation. A new transmission flooded every channel: military, civilian, emergency. Admiral Marcus Hale again. Same calm. Same tired voice. "You invaded our home," he said. "You flew past Mars." The feed cut to images: a rust-red world, scattered habitats, civilian installations. "Those were mining towns," Hale continued. "Families. Kids." Static crackled. "That was your second mistake." Zirak's chest tightened. "Second?" The answer came with data. Human colonies. Hundreds of them. Not grand cities, outposts. Hardened, self-sufficient, manned by people raised in vacuum, isolation, and constant danger. Generations who grew up knowing that help might never come. They weren't soldiers by profession. They were survivors by culture. Admiral Threx roared, spittle flying. "Order the fleet to regroup! Purge these animals ship by ship!" Zirak turned to him slowly. "They're not trying to win this battle," Zirak said. Threx sneered. "They're bleeding." "Yes," Zirak replied quietly. "On purpose." Another feed appeared unbidden. A human marine sat on a crate inside a captured Valthorian cruiser, helmet off, blood streaking her face. She looked directly into the camera and grinned. "Hey," she said. "If anyone's watching this later, sorry about the mess." She gestured at the ruined bridge. "You came into our system thinking this was conquest," she continued. "It's not." Her smile vanished. "It's education." Moments later, the ship's reactor was deliberately disabled, but not destroyed. The humans evacuated. They let it drift. Across the battlefield, the same pattern repeated. Ships crippled. Crews spared. Logs intact. Survivors allowed to flee and escape craft. Zirak finally understood. "They're seeding fear," he said hoarsely. "They want witnesses." Threx refused to accept it. "We will not retreat!" That was when the humans changed tactics. Earth itself spoke again, but this time, the voice was broadcast through ancient frequencies. Old radio bands. Analog signals. Impossible to jam. "We don't conquer," Hale said. "We remember." The words echoed through every surviving Valthorian ship. Zirak felt something inside him break, not fear. Understanding. Humanity wasn't fighting for territory. They were fighting so that no one would ever need to again. And the lesson was written in blood, vacuum, and wreckage. A lesson the galaxy would never forget. The Galactic Council had not convened in emergency session for over 6 centuries. Wars happened. Empires fell. Species went extinct. But this was different. The chamber lights dimmed as the recovered Valthorian recordings began to play. No commentary. No filters. Just raw data. Warships vanishing without warning. Gravity bending energy fire back into friendly hulls. Human boarding parties laughing as they bled, singing old songs while killing with surgical efficiency. Several counselors turned away. One vomited. Commander Zirak's final transmission played last. If this reaches Council space, his voice said, strained but steady, record this as a warning. Earth is not aggressive. It is reactive. They do not seek enemies. They remember them. The feed ended. Silence followed, heavy, oppressive. Then the doors opened. The human delegation entered without ceremony. No honor guard. No armored escort. Just one man in a dark uniform that looked more like a work coat than diplomatic attire. His hair was gray, his face lined, his posture relaxed in the way of someone who had already survived worse things than politics. He stopped at the center of the chamber. "My name is Marcus Hale," he said. "Admiral, retired. Currently representing Earth." A dozen species shifted uncomfortably. A counselor from the Iridani Combined spoke first. "Why did your people conceal such military capabilities?" Hale smiled faintly. Not kindly. "We didn't," he said. "You just didn't want to see them." He gestured, and a new image appeared, Earth from orbit. Scarred. Burned. Beautiful. "You classified us as manageable," Hale continued. "That wasn't wrong. We are." The image shifted, ancient footage. Cities in ruins. Mushroom clouds. Starving refugees. Soldiers fighting soldiers who looked exactly like them. "We spent most of our history trying to wipe ourselves out," Hale said calmly. "Turns out that's excellent training." A counselor hissed. "Why didn't you petition the Council for protection? For alliance?" Hale laughed softly. Dark humor. Tired humor. "We did." Repeatedly. "Your clerks lost the paperwork. Your committees delayed votes. Your trade blocs argued about resource projections." He leaned forward slightly. "So we protected ourselves." The chamber shifted again, this time showing hidden orbital arrays, asteroid engines, cold launch platforms older than some member species. "Why not expand?" another counselor asked. "Why not build an empire after defeating the Valthorians?" Hale's smile vanished. "Because empires attract challengers," he said. "And challengers bring fleets." A murmur rippled through the chamber. "We don't want your space," Hale continued. "We want quiet." A long pause. Then the smallest counselor, a frail avian species, whispered, "What do you want from us?" Hale straightened. "Nothing." The word echoed louder than any threat. "We are not here to demand tribute or territory. We're here to correct a mistake." He turned, activating the final projection. A single line of text appeared in every known language. Earth, non-aggressive defensive world. Engagement not recommended. Hale faced the chamber again. "If anyone ever asks, which planet are we invading?" he said, voice flat. "We want the answer to cause hesitation." He paused. "Fear, preferably." No one argued. The vote was unanimous. Earth was reclassified within the hour. Not as a threat. Not as an ally. But as something older, rarer, and far more dangerous. A line not to be crossed. Zirak awoke days later aboard a neutral medical vessel. He was alive. That alone unsettled him. A human sat beside his recovery pod, legs crossed, helmet resting on the floor. She looked familiar, bloodied face from one of the feeds. "You're lucky," she said casually. "Admiral Hale told them to patch you up." "Why?" Zirak croaked. She shrugged. "You tried to stop it. That counts for something." He studied her, struggling to understand. "You could have destroyed us completely." She nodded. "Yeah. Why didn't you?" Her eyes hardened, not with rage but memory. "Because if we had," she said quietly, "someone else would try again." She stood. Now you'll tell them not to. She paused at the door. Oh, and Commander? Zirak looked up. Tell your people, she said with a crooked smile. We're really nice, if left alone. Then she was gone. And for the first time in his life, Commander Zirak hoped the galaxy was wise enough to listen. Years passed, and the phrase spread like wildfire across star systems. Don't poke Earth. It began as a warning whispered in frightened corridors of the Galactic Council, grew into a nervous joke among mercenary fleets, and ended as law in the farthest reaches of the Outer Rim. Every empire, every pirate band, every explorer in uncharted space learned the same lesson: humanity didn't conquer. Humanity didn't negotiate. Humanity simply survived, and everyone who underestimated them paid for the mistake. Humanity did not build a galactic empire. It did not march outward like the Valthorians or the Iridani Combine. They focused inward on their planet, on their colonies, on their people. But Earth's shadow stretched farther than any fleet could travel. Zirak lived out the remainder of his days and what passed for retirement on Valthor Prime. He lectured young officers about strategy, tactics, and the pitfalls of overconfidence. Every lesson ended the same way. If an officer ever shouts, "Which planet are we invading?" he said, claws folded behind his back. And the reply is Earth. He paused. The silence in the classroom thickened like plasma. Run! Students laughed at first. They never laughed a second time. The humans were not the strongest. They were not the most numerous. They were not even the most technologically advanced, at least not on paper. But they were something far more terrifying. They were resilient beyond reason, relentless beyond instinct, and above all, they remembered. Entire fleets had learned it the hard way. Outposts had learned it the harder way. The Valthorian Armada had learned it the hardest way possible. Zirak would never forget the face of that human marine sitting on the crate, patching herself up while grinning through the blood. You know, she said, casual as a summer breeze over the ruined bridge, we almost didn't survive ourselves as a species. Zirak had asked why they had. Spite. Love. And the fact that someone always tried to kill them. Guess we got good at it, she said. It became the quiet law of the galaxy. To touch Earth was to court annihilation. Not because humanity wanted to dominate, but because humanity had perfected the art of survival to a terrifying, elegant degree. And somewhere in the back of Zirak's mind, he understood that one day, the galaxy would see it again, not as a warning, but as a story. The story of a species that could not be broken. A species that could not be bargained with. A species that laughed while bleeding, that sang while killing, and that always survived. And the galaxy would never forget. Because when someone finally asked again, "Which planet are we invading?" the only correct answer, spoken in every trembling tongue across the stars, would be Earth. And then, run.